Okay, and we are live. Welcome. So my name's Isaac. I am the co-founder of Pet Summits and the host of the Pet Care Report. The mission of this show is to connect pet parents with the world's leading pet experts and brands to discover the latest essentials, pet products, and to help with optimal pet care. So today, we are very excited to have on our episode two a very special guest, Dr. Susan, co-founder of ChiDog. Dr. Susan has been a practicing veterinarian for 15 years, teaching home cooking techniques to clients. Dr. Susan is a certified in traditional Chinese veterinary medicines, herbal therapy, acupuncture, and food therapy. And after seeing the benefit of food, vet therapy, and using real whole food ingredients in dogs' diets for years, Dr. Susan formulated cooked balanced meals with therapeutic and preventative benefits for prevention and healthy dogs and puppies to support chronic imbalances because food is the first medicine.
Yeah,
Welcome, Dr. Susan. Very
I,
happy to have you here on again.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
So just to kick things off, we're very fortunate to have you on our very first on our summit, the Gut Health Summit. So we wanted to bring back again so we can dive a little bit deeper about what you do specifically for ChiDog, or what ChiDog is about. So just to kick things off, what is food therapy and how can you use it to help choose the right diet for your dog?
Well, food therapy is one of the disciplines in traditional Chinese medicine. We do acupuncture, we do herbs, and we do food therapy. And that's true both for practitioners who work with people and for veterinarians who use Chinese medicine in dogs and cats. And I became certified was a veterinarian and practiced for 10 years and loved veterinary medicine. And I'm a small animal practitioner. Then when I started to work with Chinese medicine and acupuncture and herbal medicine, I found huge benefit and kind of a different avenue for our patients. But to be able to bring them more than just pharmaceuticals and surgeries and sort of the Western medicine, which is important. But we there's other things we can do as well. And but what I found really significant in every like repeatedly in my patients is when we started to use food therapy. And food therapy is the concept of not just using good quality ingredients, not just using healthy food, but trying to use specific ingredients to try to help the body with their imbalances. So in Chinese medicine, we see imbalances such as too much heat or too much cold or not enough heat or not enough cold. And so a lot of those imbalances that we look at and that we identify and diagnose and tell us which acupuncture needles to use or which herbals to use, it also tells us which food to use. And that's really important because it's something that especially when it comes to our dogs, it's very much not a part of the dialogue in how we take care of our dogs. We just kind of think food, what should I feed my dog? Healthy food, what kind? I like chicken, I like turkey, or my dog's allergic to this, or my dog's allergic, we do those are important, but foundationally, if we can find a food that if you're too warm is going to over time cool you, that can really benefit you. So that's kind of the underlying concept of food therapy is certain foods warm, certain foods cool, and certain foods will dry or moisten us. So we try to use those foods intentionally.
Okay. And it's like, does the environment impact
Oh,
on that?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's a good question, Isaac. It does. I mean, because I'm in Southern California, and so
Yeah.
when I practice, I laugh with a lot of the holistic veterinarians that everything we see is hot and dry because
Yeah, okay.
you
Yeah.
know, so over as animals age, just like people, we tend
Yeah.
to get drier, and specifically when it comes to food, our processed food. So for us, tortilla chips, for our dogs, processed dry kibble, years and
Yeah.
years and years over time, that processed food puts heat into our body. And that's what, or we'll call it in Western medicine pro-inflammatory. So,
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
right, so that pro-inflammatory puts heat into our body, and then our environment can put heat. It can make it kind of tend us to a little more hot. So it's true that your environment does impact it. If for patients living in Minnesota or Wisconsin, the very colder climates, they don't have quite as much heat in their environment. They may still have a ton of it in their food, But you're right. In California, it's just a little extra.
Yeah, it's for I'm not too sure what the Fahrenheit is, but it's like 30 degrees here in Sydney, Australia at the moment. And I was taking my little puppy. He was outside for like 10 minutes yesterday, and he's like, no, I'm not having any of this. And yeah, the food that I normally feed him, I had to give him. He was loving like fresh watermelon. He was like, okay, give me some of that cool stuff because he was just
Yeah,
really, really, really hot.
it's true. The watermelon's a great example because it's kind of a strange concept to kind of wrap your head around that certain foods warm you, like chicken warms you, uh,
Yeah,
lamb warms you, those, whereas other foods like rabbit cools you, turkey cools you. So those things seem a little abstract, but if you take it really simple for in a human way, we think of what do you want to eat in the winter? You want stew, right? You want like baked
yeah,
carrots. Those are warming. And then what do you want?
yeah,
You want a spinach salad, you want watermelon, and those are naturally cooling you. So it is so
yeah.
I think with that, it kind of makes sense, but that happens among all our foods. And the interesting thing about our dogs, specifically cats too, but dogs as well, they eat often the same thing over and over and over again. And we do like rotation, but in general, they very much have the same diet. So it's a really good idea to help give your dog sort of what they need from a imbalance standpoint. If they're too hot, we cool them. If they're too cold, we warm them when we're feeding them, and that can really benefit them over time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially going back to what you're saying before when, you know, when it's a really hot day or when it's winter, we want that soup on a really hot day. We want some foods that we're just naturally inclined to seek out these types of foods.
Yeah.
Uh, so I guess the second question is, why did you create ChiDog?
Oh, well, so I've been practicing veterinary medicine for about 15 years and really focused on Chinese medicine and holistic medicine, acupuncture, herbs for the last, say, 7 years. But what was incredible to me was the improvements I got in my patients when I started using food therapy, which means we do the acupuncture, we do the herbs, we do all the Western treatments, but then we're going to look at your diet. And initially, and still for a lot of veterinarians, that means home cooking recipes. So I
Yeah,
spent a lot of years teaching home cooking recipes, which is, you get your pot out and you go to the grocery store and you buy it and you cook it. And that really, I mean, just by yourself every day. And what I found was if I could get that client to use a recipe for their dog, especially if that dog was coming to me on kibble, I knew I could improve the dog. Like all the other stuff will do, but just a little extra was to get them off this processed food. And I knew every skin case could get better. Every obesity would improve when we weren't even trying to improve it. We were maybe treating the dog for arthritis, but he was also heavy. And then when we put him on a recipe, the weight came off. They started to feel
yeah,
better. All those things just got just exponentially better. And I realized what the main thing that we had done that was sort of next level was get them off this processed food, right? And get them on real food. And so after years of teaching these recipes, we thought we're just going to make these recipes because there's, a great need, I think, for us as holistic veterinarians and holistic minded clients and dog owners to really look at food and see what traditional Chinese medicine can do to help us really benefit our dogs. So really getting them off processed food, getting them on real food that's intentionally used to help in a balance can really benefit. And that's what made me
yeah.
we need to make this have a product that's already done for you, already cooked, already made.
I know. My dad is very like old school, and I was cooking for my puppy, and he's like, "You cooking for your dog?" I'm like, "Yes, Dad."
Yes.
And I was
We're
yeah,
doing dogs are doing the home cooked. Well, I mean, really think about it, even before we started doing dog kibble in the 1950s or so, that's when we talked about dogs that ate scraps. That's what they ate was basically your home cooked leftovers. And there's lots of anecdotal, discussions about how much better they were, their skin and their coat and their weight. And in human medicine, we know processed food is pro-inflammatory. Like that's
yeah,
cancer, diabetes, obesity, all those things are well documented. They want us to eat whole foods. In Chinese medicine, they've been saying whole foods for all mammals, well, for thousands of years. Like we should never be feeding anybody processed kibble, routinely.
yeah. No, that just seems like a bit of a no-brainer, really, doesn't it?
It is, but
Uh,
it's hard for a lot of clients, a lot of dog owners to know what else, because there's raw food, right? Which is great. And Chinese medicine has kind of a perspective on that, Western medicine, you either love raw or you hate raw, right? Like from a veterinary, very
Yeah,
polarized when it comes to raw. So there's very much
yeah,
strong, it's the best way to feed, it's the way they should eat like wolves, or it's, bacterial laden and those concerns. From a traditional Chinese veterinary medicine perspective, we think raw can be good for that really strong athlete. So that young, healthy dog who's just, I always kind of joke and say that 2-year-old German Shepherd who is just, pacing the fence and minding the parameters, that dog is great for raw because they're the athlete and because you're literally using your own chi, your own energy to cook it. So you got to
yeah,
have that chi. And if you don't, and then raw may become hard for you to metabolize. And that's the dog who ate raw well when they were young. And then as they age, all of a sudden starts to have GI problems or starts to not feel as well or have, kind of vomiting, increased GI. That dog may be saying, raw was great for me when I was a youngster. Now I need to transition. Or the dog who starts on raw, because as a veterinarian, I've seen this before. They'll start on raw. One dog does great, and the other dog just does terrible. And that dog who didn't do well, it just doesn't have as strong a spleen chi to be able to really cook that raw. They need to go on a cooked diet. So that's kind of
yeah. And I think there was we spoke maybe before we did on the gut summit, and that was something that you talked to me briefly about. Is like every dog we could have like two Frenchies, but the two Frenchies have different chi energy. So we're feeding that dog based on their specific chi energy. Is that correct? Or is
Yeah,
that
it's like when we talk about breeds, and we do, most golden retrievers are gonna be lazy and sweet and, sit on the couch, most Frenchies are gonna be really excited and they're very friendly and they're the Yorkies. There's that breedism, and that's
yeah.
absolutely there, and in Western medicine, we just go, "Yeah, because that's the breed." In Chinese
Mm,
medicine, we go, "Yeah, because that's their constitution." It's kind of what they're made of, which is almost a combination of their genes and their personality. We put those in Chinese medicine in the same box. So the way
yeah.
you act, it can have an impact on what we think about what may happen to you as you age. So you're right. We do think about the constitution in Chinese medicine, and that's why on our ChiDog website, we try to put the personalities of the different constitutions because the constitutions are wood, fire, earth, metal, water, and that's kind of the natural way. And most of our Jack Russell Terriers are wood. Most of our Frenchies and our Yorkies are fire. So we do have kind of the breeds that go along. But you're right. If there's a certain, two different poodles, one may be a little earth and one may be a little fire, and that may be why they act different, have different conditions as they age, maybe should be fed differently. It's kind of a different way of looking at them. And when they're healthy and perfect, that 2-year-old who you want to keep perfectly healthy will feed by constitution. So, you can go on the ChiDog website, it'll see the personalities, and you'll say, that's my dog's personality. And like, for example, the water dog is a shy dog. That
Yeah.
shy,
Okay.
they're born water, right? That's just how they are. And so
Yeah.
if they're healthy, you feed the water diet. As they age, if we have a dog who's doing great, but then when they're 10, they get arthritis, that's a problem in the water element of the body. We may feed water to help that condition. So it's kind of
Okay.
whether or not they're healthy or imbalanced helps you to kind of feed toward that imbalance or feed to keep them healthy.
And the food can kind of like get the chi balance back on the line, other with the other type of chi therapies.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We think of it's not so much that, for example, we have a lot of our fire dogs or very the sort of extroverted, very friendly dogs. Those are often fire dog personalities. They tend towards problems of inflammation. So they
Yeah.
tend to end up with, and I always kind of joke with other veterinarians, we're going to see them when they're 2 for skin problems. And then we're going to see them, when they're 5 for pancreatitis. And then we're going to see them when they're 12 for Cushing's disease. And all those conditions are inflammation just progressing in the body. So, and what makes it much worse is if we're feeding them wrong. We're feeding them processed kibble and pro-inflammatory foods. It just cramps. So we take that fire dog and feed them anti-inflammatory food from the beginning and really try to mitigate that, keep them balanced. So that
Yeah.
they're not
Okay.
ending up with such inflammation when they're 12. So you're really just trying to help them live more gently. And so, for example, our fire diet is our most anti-inflammatory. It's turkey, which is cooling, and all the other ingredients are cooling ingredients.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of how we will use. We just know this dog is prone to inflammation, so we really want to try to use a food that's going to pull back that inflammation.
And I guess coming into that is and dive a little bit deeper is how can dog owners use ChiDog to feed a healthy puppy or dog and a dog with chronic disease?
Right. So when they're healthy puppy, you can use sort of what, and if you work with a holistic veterinarian, they're looking at your dog from the beginning, and they're already looking at the constitution. They're that dog is a wood dog. He might need a that dog is a water dog. I better go really slow because this one's shy. You kind of get a sense of what they are, and that's just the personality and the genes they're born with. There's nothing wrong with the shy dog being shy and the extroverted dog being extroverted. That's just who they are. But what
Yeah,
we think of is when they're young and perfect, that we are going to feed by constitution. So that's why, like on our website, or there are other websites that talk about constitutions of dogs and people, because people have them too. I'm metal. We all have our own
yeah,
constitution. So we would go on the website. You could find the personality and feed for that personality. If they're imbalanced, so I have a dog who's having some GI problems at age 5. Now I'm going to focus on that GI problem. I'm going to feed towards that. So that's kind of how we would use the different constitution versus imbalance in a dog. If they have an imbalance, focus on the imbalance.
okay. And what a little bit more about that? If you're got an imbalance or your dog has or you've come from a veterinarian and they've told you to go, oh, you need to feed them raw, but the dog is continuously having these or a process, not processed, but a different type of diet. And what what would you say to pet parents out there if they're experiencing that issues and they can't get hold of ChiDog or they're not too sure about it? What would they do? What's something they can do right now?
First thing, whenever we have a dog who's having a GI issue, first thing we do is, especially not eating, right? How common is that? Like the dog won't eat, or the dog eats or they don't want to eat and they vomit. So the GI issue is like an immediate problem, right? So like if you wake up in the morning and they're not eating well, that's something you're not going to wait 5 days and deal with it, right? So I
Yeah,
always tell owners, if they are not eating, this is not a situation where you want to kind of make it they'll eat when they're hungry enough, or we're gonna just they'll eventually eat. Like, this is not these dogs aren't doing this because they want to make trouble. If they're not eating their food, they need to have it changed, right? And it's perfectly fine to pull out your pot, pull out your pan, and I'm gonna cook a little rice, and I'm gonna cook I always say ground meat because it's easy, you don't have to chop it. But I would say just cook a little rice, cook a little ground beef or ground turkey or something, and maybe you're gonna add a scrambled egg, right? Like easy stuff.
okay,
And you don't have to worry about that's not balanced. We do want food balanced over time, right? And
yeah,
our ChiDog meals are balanced with our veterinary nutritionist with all the vitamins and minerals. But for a short term period, it's completely fine to say, I'm going to try to cook a little bit and see if
yeah.
I can add that to their food, or I can help them to transition to another food that they like better, that they do better on. But in general, there's pretty much always an alternative to having to feed them processed kibble. And that's what I would move toward that.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I know because I'm traveling at the moment, cooking. Fortunately, I've got a kitchen where I'm staying, and yeah, that sometimes not everyone has that. So
Yeah.
you need food like ChiDog. I've seen like you can travel with it because it's not necessarily have to be fresh. You can as long as you put it in like a little we call it a chili bin in New Zealand, but a cooler. I think it's called a
Yes. And
cooler in North America.
if how often are we traveling with our dogs? I mean, I get that question a lot, but like, if you're cooking for them or you're feeding a real food 325 days a year, the rest of the day, yeah, if you're traveling around, okay, fine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've got a really good question, and we're going to open this up to the audience. So if anyone else that's listening right now has a question, please feel free to put it into the comment section, and we'll have Dr. Susan answer it. We have a question from Annette Libby. She said, "Which of the cheat diets would be appropriate for a dog with auto immune disorder?"
Yeah, vasculitis. So vasculitis, inflammation in the blood vessels, right? In general, I would say, so this is a good question, Annette, because I would tell you there's two categories for sort of inflammation in the blood vessels. You could have a dog, if the dog is very strong, very active, just really plenty of energy, I would definitely do the fire diet or a cooling diet, right? Because vasculitis itis is inflammation. So it usually means heat, right? For most dogs. So if you have a very strong dog with vasculitis or autoimmune disease, especially if they have to be on prednisone, which is extremely important for that condition. And it does come with its side effects, but it's
Mm.
necessary. Then we would say definitely feed a cooling diet because prednisone and inflammation are all heating up the body. So your job is to try to offset that, make that, pull that back by using cooling foods such as turkey, our fire diet, and our water diet specifically. Fire mostly, but water is also cooling, not quite as much as fire, is a good option. The other type of vasculitis dog, maybe a dog if they're very weak, if they're very, if they're having a lot of problems, if they're very, very tired, they're having poor appetite, you might want to do a very gentle diet. That's the wood diet, which is chicken, egg, and brown rice. It's literally a chicken and rice. So vasculitis can be strong dog. I would definitely go for the anti-inflammatory cooling. If a dog who's really weak, I would do the wood diet or chicken and rice
Okay, well, that's a very in-depth answer. Doesn't look like we got any other questions. What would be one of the most common, well, probably, I know there's been many different types of problems that will come, but when you see as a veterinarian that you would have your patients come in, and then what recommendations do you give to these
diet.
patients of yours?
There's always the 3 that I think of. When I talk to other veterinarians, we talk about food, I always think start your skin dogs, right? Because skin is when we see problems with the skin, we see it as a reflection of the health of the GI tract in Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
In Chinese medicine, the skin and the gut are closely related. So
Mm.
when we look at if we want to know how your gut is, we're looking at your skin and your coat, and it's kind of looking at those type of things. So I would tell you the skin dogs, I would say those guys, if I have a skin dog who's got skin condition on processed food, I'm definitely trying to switch them to cooked. Sometimes raw, but definitely cooked. I mean, but they're definitely off of kibble, right? Usually
Yeah.
cooked, definitely off of kibble. So that's the skin dog. The other one that's kind of the no-brainer is the heavy dog, the obese dog. It's so sad to me to have these dogs who come in very heavy, and the owner's trying their hardest, right? They're feeding this pound golden retriever like a fourth cup of kibble because they you just keep thinking smaller portions to get the weight off, and the poor dog just can't lose it, and they're miserable because they get like a teaspoon for dinner, and
Yeah.
that struggle is I've seen it for years, and we always say it's the food. It's the processed food that this dog just can't. It's usually the earth dogs. They just can't lose that weight. So that dog is an easy switch to home cooked or real food, cooked food. That dog will help lose weight once we get them off the processed food. So the skin dogs, the obese dogs, and the last one I would think of is the obvious one, the GI dogs, the dog who's not doing well on, they have pancreatitis, they've been on low fat intestinal for years and years. It's just not working well for them. That dog is asking to change. So that was an easy one because the dog is saying this is not working for me
Yeah. Okay. We just had a question come in from Kathy. Um, I always wonder which is the best diet to start with puppies.
Yeah, so for puppies, it depends on if we have like a 6, 7 month old, strong, active German Shepherd or not, or Jack Russell Terrier, just a very confident, strong dog. That dog may be a good, or an athlete, that dog may be a good choice for raw. When they're 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you're still in the very gentle stages of their life. We always say you're very, the gentle ones are the babies, and when they're very old, those are dogs we want on cooked. So you're not going to feed a newborn something, steak, So I would say cooked food when they're young, when they're babies.
It's a 6 month Yorkie.
So Yorkie's different because Yorkie is not usually, if this Yorkie is like most Yorkies are fire dogs. They have this tendency towards inflammation in their GI. We worry about pancreatitis and IBD. So that dog I would keep on cooked and cooling foods, mostly because
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is a Yorkie, and we're worrying about all the pancreatitis and inflammatory bowel disease that we commonly see. So I would do for the ChiDog diet, I would do the fire diet, which is the turkey diet. That's for our fire dogs.
Yeah.
The ingredients in there would be turkey. So cooked turkey would be a good choice for a 6 month Yorkie.
What about well, this is back to when we'll your the earlier comment, we're going about dogs and obesity. Bulldogs. Now I know there's been a little bit of controversy going on right now, and with the Norway, but bulldogs. I've seen a bulldog just walking down the road from us the other day. Those dogs are always overweight. So how would you feed or recommend feeding a bulldog?
So bulldogs, usually most bulldogs are earth dogs. right? And earth dogs are just like people, you know, that we all know you just can't lose the weight. You everybody somebody can eat, 2 pizzas a day, they're fine. Somebody else has, like, been dieting. It's your personality and your genes. So the bulldogs, like the golden retrievers, not always, but by and large, are usually earth dogs, and they have such a hard time losing the weight anyway. So then
Yeah.
from a processed dog food, like them are feeding them tortilla chips and asking them to lose weight. It's so much harder for them. And
Mm.
additionally, they have such skin issues, right? And in Western medicine, we go, that's the bulldog. In holistic medicine, we go, yeah, that's the earth dog. You're seeing all those GI problems just blowing in the skin. And so
Yeah.
that's really, you're right. The bulldogs and the golden retrievers, those dogs whose food is so important to them, it really matters how we feed them.
And I guess that's just like us as well. You are what you eat, and if you're and based on the dog breed and what they and their energy and what's best to feed them for how they can consume their food. And if if the dog is a sports diet, like the German Shepherd or the hunting dog, or these police dogs that really need that they need that type of food, and that's how you would feed them according to their
Right.
output.
And they would probably do great for that, that hunting dog would probably do great on, like, a raw food for while they're young and active. But then we always kind of think when they're 5 or they're 8 or they're 10, depending on the dog, when that dog no longer does so well, you might transition, and go, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm going to go. And we just, I just think that when, from a Western medicine standpoint, the concept that our only choices are kibble and canned food is just, I don't want to say outdated. I want to say it's just not benefiting most dogs.
I know. I laugh when my dad was like, "You're cooking for your dog," uh, and I'm so thankful for people like yourself and what's happening in the community. With there's so many holistic veterinarians and other, all veterinarians being more educated,
Mhm.
and getting the information out there. And what I look back on how we used to feed my dog, when many years ago, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it's like it's horrible. And then what we're learning, what goes into it. So you
Mhm.
know,
I mean, we are becoming more educated as consumers just about what it is. And it's interesting to me because, Chinese medicine has been teaching this concept of food therapy and home cooking, not, for many years. So I'm hopeful that we can really sort of bring that to more people and to more dogs so that we can really, rather than always just thinking I've got to go grab a different bag or a different can when my dog's not doing well, or I need to help my dog in some way, pulling out your pot and your pan and, like, thinking that food is okay, to feed them. It's really it can be a great way to take care of them. I always joke that
yeah.
dogs love 3 things. They love their owners, they love and they love food. So we want those things to all be wonderful parts of their lives.
Oh man, my little Frenchie is such a little piggy.
Good,
He
that's
lo-
good.
it's amazing. It's just he makes me laugh. So I think we're just about time. If people are out there in the audience, how do they go about finding ChiDog?
Yeah, so we deliver our meals across the U.S. So they can order on our website at ChiDog.com. You can also reach out to me at ChiDog.com. I have my email on there. It's Dr. Bohrer at ChiDog.com. It's on the website. If you have questions about your dog, or you can give me a call if you want to sort of ask about. We do a lot of different things with ChiDog. We can do custom orders where we do a couple different diets for different dogs. So we have some options for people. But I would check it out. And if you're not really sure and you want to just kind of test it, just do a little cooking and see how that goes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for speaking with us today. I hope everyone has learnt a lot. I've learnt a lot, and thank you again for all the wonderful work that you're doing for our pets, and for ChiDog, helping us understand what our energy is and what our dog's energy requires to feed themselves. Thank you so much, Dr. Susan.
Thank you.